So here we go. I'm Wayne and welcome to Goals by the Numbers. If you're passionate about football and love diving into the stats behind every game, you've come to the right place. We discuss performances, give you a deep statistical look at the biggest matches in the Premier League from the previous weekend. So this week, we look at Arsenal securing second place and Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur losing once again. So, our first match, Arsenal 1, Newcastle 0. In a competitive game, Newcastle will feel they should have got a result. Just like having possession for possession's sake, if you don't put the ball in the back of the net, having a higher XG doesn't mean anything. This wasn't just a win for Arsenal, it also ensured that they will finish second in the table. I can imagine that there would have been opposition fans who would have been absolutely ready to start sending out memes across social media talking about how Arsenal season, or at least towards the end, has absolutely melted down. But kudos is deserved. They've managed to secure second place, and even though it wasn't the season the fans, I'm sure, ultimately would want it, it could have ended worse. Newcastle, on the other hand, lost the chance to not only go above Arsenal, but guarantee a spot in the top five. Both teams made a good fist of it and had some really good chances. Raya, who seems more impressive every time I see him, made some smart saves, and Declan Rice continues to build his reputation as a scorer of great goals with a first time strike from just outside the box. So, the numbers. Despite a match with only one goal, there were 26 shots in total and 60 clearances, which highlights the fact that both teams were clearly trying to win the game and their defences were resolute. Of those clearances, Kiwo and Shah made 11 each. What else do we have? Lewis Skelly attempted the most passes of the Arsenal team, that being 50, and completed 92% of them. And Tonali for Newcastle made 5 shot creating actions and crossed the ball 7 times. So, our next match, Aston Villa 2, Tottenham 0. How to describe this match? It was a bit of a strange one. In the opening 20 minutes, both teams had a few chances. It looked as if it might turn into a bit of a good game. And then on the 21st minute and from then onwards, Aston Villa had 14 shots and Tottenham had 1. The game just seemed to become one-way traffic in terms of pure attacking threat. Tottenham, again with a rotated team due to their Europa Final League match this week, suffered their 21st defeat of the season. They look like a team who have players who aren't quite experienced, who aren't up to speed in the Premier League, and players who come up from injury, who are trying to get into form to hopefully play in the Europa League final. And just like Manchester United, they seem to have detached themselves and are waiting for the final, because winning that will mean the team qualifies for the Champions League and completely transform a season. I have to point out that I wouldn't say Tottenham were not trying, but the edge that they would have had if there was something to play for in the Premier League just wasn't there. Aston Villa, on the other hand, looked good, and I think this win will put them in a good frame of mind for their final match of the season on Sunday. So, the numbers. Third win in a row for Aston Villa. Good time to get some wins in a row towards the end of the season. Aston Villa had 67% possession and 18 shots versus the 3 of Tottenham. John McGinn made 8 shot creating actions. Danzo and Spence for Tottenham made 6 clearances each. And what did surprise me was that only 4 Tottenham players won a tackle. Okay, fair enough. So, our last match, Chelsea 1, Manchester United nil. Watching this match, I did wonder at what point, at what point, at what point do I think that there isn't really that much of a difference between the two teams? I mean, yes, it was 1-0. Yes, Chelsea won. Did I think that Chelsea absolutely bullied, harried, harassed, and run over Manchester United? No. Ultimately, it's a results driven business, so they got the win. That's all they're really going to care about. But the difference between both teams doesn't seem that huge. So the question, I guess, would be why is it Chelsea competing for a Champions League place and Manchester United are, well, with the current points tally they have in some seasons, they would have been relegated? Offers food for thought in several ways. Maguire scored a great goal, continuing his recent run of good form in multiple competitions, only to find that he was offside by his right arm. The offside rule and VAR, I understand why they've done it, but I do think it should be daylight, as in there is visible daylight between the attacking player's torso, and the last player who's in the defensive line, their torso too. I think if there's daylight, that should be offside. To think that someone can be offside because their big toe is behind the other player seems to be an extreme, but still, we digress. Um, the best few chances in the match all came between the 71st and 79th minute, where Kukurea scored a really good header. Reece James pirouetting on the edge of the box to get past Alejandro Garnacho, kind of chipped the ball in, a bit of a chip cross, and Cucurella came steaming in to headed the ball into the goal. Cue the celebrations, and that was it. That was the game done. Ahmad and Neto also had really good attempts saved in the same time period. Manchester United didn't really rotate their team. It looks as if they're going for the idea or the belief that playing players who are most likely to start in the Europa League final, it's better to play them to keep the momentum in their bodies. Whereas Tottenham have gone for the opposite view and are playing youth players and squad players to keep the players that are going to start fresh. So on one hand, Tottenham have lost a couple of games, but the players who are going to play in the final haven't actually experienced those defeats. Whereas Manchester United have players with momentum who have been losing games. So it'll be interesting to see what the result is, because I guess, I mean, either approach you couldn't really say is wrong. You could get the result of the final and say the other team's approach was wrong, but realistically, I think we'll have to see the result and see the performance and then decide which manager took the right approach. Um, yeah, and though the level of both teams in Manchester United and Chelsea felt as if it's in the same wheelhouse, Chelsea always looked like they were. I guess on the balance of things, Chelsea looked like they were more likely to win, especially being at home, showing more intent and taking more shots in general. So the numbers: Cole Palmer made 6 shot creating actions. Bruno Fernandes made 3 switches, as in a pass that travels more than 40 yards and the width of the pitch. And he also made 4 crosses. Caicedo completed 7 passes into the final third of the pitch, which is interesting because I've always viewed him as more of a defensive player. So, our next topic, Champions League qualification. So, if I whack a table up in here, so in a season where Brentford had the highest goals per shot, they actually have double the amount of Manchester United and Southampton. Liverpool and Arsenal have qualified for the Champions League and taken 2 of the 5 available places. That leaves us with 5 teams competing for 3 places. Yeah. Newcastle, Chelsea, Aston Villa, Manchester City, and Nottingham Forest will play their final match of the season, the Premier League season, on Sunday. After a long season, the final matches of the season will dictate a lot for the teams. Aston Villa getting back into the Champions League will mean that they'll be able to build on the squad that they've been developing and push on again. Newcastle will want to be in the Champions League because with their new owners, they want to become, I guess, quote unquote, the next Manchester City. Nottingham Forest haven't been in Europe for what feels like most of my life. So let's say 30 plus years. So for them getting in, it would be absolutely amazing considering they nearly got relegated the season before. Manchester City, their season hasn't gone to plan, and they would have had aspirations of winning the league. So for them, qualifying will give them another chance to win the biggest title, win the biggest prizes next season. And we'll have to see where it all kind of ends up. So to throw up a table of the matches, so what do we think? Assuming Manchester City get over their defeat in the FA Cup final to Crystal Palace, they would be expected to beat Bournemouth. Doing that would put them in prime position for a top 5 finish. And outside of a massive swinging goal difference, will at least guarantee them 6th, which would be European football. So who will qualify? My gut tells me that Newcastle, Chelsea, and Manchester City will all win their matches and round up the top 5. Newcastle are at the greatest risk as they sit mid-table in the form table, and Aston Villa are 5th in the form table, and are also playing Manchester United, who I genuinely can't remember when they last won in the Premier League, since they literally formally switched off. So topical. With the Premier League season ending soon, we will move away from speaking about individual matches and speak about a wider range of topics. That could be things from analysing players over a season, talking about historical topics such as director of footballs and the impacts that they've made. Where that will take us, I don't know. But, as always, the numbers will guide us. So, questions. Who do we think will win the Premier League next season? And I can only think of one more question at this point. Will the final day deliver a surprise in the race for Champions League spots or qualifications? Could you imagine if 2 of the teams that qualify for the Champions League next season were Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest? Wouldn't that be interesting? Anyway, comments below. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.